Hey guys, this is BR Williams. Um, I decided today that I'm going to just do some live painting. Apologize for my mega garbage microphone and the audio quality, of course. Um, Today I'm going to be painting an original character that I kind of paint when I don't have a single clue in hell what to paint. And I haven't painted in over a month because I'm kind of been in a massive painting rut for, I don't know, a while now. Don't really know what to do with my skills as a painter, and I don't really know who I am as a painter or drawer. For a long time I kind of tried to just do environments and landscapes, but my environment's always been just so awful, and maybe it's because I'm always writing that I just use all my creative energy, but I just don't ever have good ideas for landscapes. I mean, I can appreciate good landscape painting, but it never works out. Okay, what's wrong? Photoshop. Okay, I hadn't even started painting, in this. Expensive shit program's already crashed, so that's typical Photoshop. Okay. It's a little wonky. I'm gonna be painting Scats. He might be my oldest original character that I have that I still draw. First conceived of him when I was in middle school. And I created a comic book series with him starring as the main character. And after I finish writing of Princess Juliana, that is what I intend on working on, except I hope to have a team of at least 3 or 4 people helping me with it, because I don't really feel like spending a decade of my life on another project. Usually my time-lapse videos, I don't usually record the sketching process, just because I kind of like to work this out without any pressure. Also, I'm really bad at drawing. I'm only worse now because I haven't really drawn at all. I haven't seriously drawn in like a long time. I had a client ask me to do some drawings and they turned out pretty good, but yeah. So I'm using the symmetry tool because I just don't feel like being stressful researching angles and all this nonsense. Just gonna keep it easy, keep it relaxed. Scats is a bit of a doomer. He's kind of like just this depressed kind of character. He's not necessarily depressed. Well, he is depressed, but he suffers from PTSD and anxiety, and he copes with his drug use and alcohol use. So maybe not the most unique character in the world, but no one's entirely unique. Everyone kind of shares similar problems. Okay. His eyes are already kind of weird, but that's perfectly fine because Every time I draw these characters, they always look a little different. That's always been one of my issues with drawing characters, is that I've never been stylistically consistent with any of them. They always turn out a little bit different, which it's only natural for a character to change each time you draw them. That kind of happens over the years, but it's not natural to have it happen every time you draw it. So this right now is not very cat-like, which is, you know, it's almost cat-like. Lower this a little bit. So far so good. I have like this weird headset design I use on them, but I don't think I'm gonna want to draw that. I don't usually like drawing the pupils immediately. Mainly because it puts too much focus on the center of the face too early, and you don't really need that. And I don't usually work with gray drawing when I'm drawing. I don't usually work with gray. I don't know why I didn't change that. I usually like to use like a lighter brown color for my sketches. So I mean, this is already kind of very different from how I've drawn them in the past. Usually has like this big collar, which I don't typically draw the clothing in symmetry. You really don't want it to be symmetrical. It just makes everything boring. But good start. It's actually more like a wombat, I think. I'm not sure. That's my problem with cats. They always never really look like cats. They just kind of... yeah. Probably help if I finish drawing this goal. I'm also not looking at a photo reference, which is always a mistake. You know, if you want to be a good drawer, good artist, you should always be looking at a photo reference. Just because you can't really rely on your memory as much as you think you can. Or at least it will take you years to be able to rely on your memory before you can. I mean, you should test your memory every once in a while, just to kind of see where you're at, because you don't want to rely on like photo references way too much, or else you'll just have a lazy memory. You won't be able to remember anything. So you really do want to work out your memory every once in a while. I stopped studying painting a while ago. I don't know why. I just kind of got to a point where like I didn't feel like studying anymore. Like it doesn't feel like it's what I need. Like I can keep studying and I'll definitely keep improving if I did, but I don't feel like that's what I need right now as an artist or as a painter. I feel like I'm missing something more fundamental. He always kind of has these like lazy, I don't like give a shit type eyes. Maybe it's because I'm on the spectrum, but I've always had a very difficult time drawing facial expressions. Like if I look at a cartoon character's facial expressions, I can understand it. At least I think I can. But I can't, I definitely can't draw them at all. I kind of just scribble until I get it right. Okay. This really isn't... I don't... Sorry if this music is too loud. I know I should have music at all and then just kind of like layer music in editing, but you don't feel like painting without music. Should probably take off symmetry at this point and just kind of figure out what's going on here. I don't really want his eyes looking directly center, because that's, you know, never not weird. When a portrait's just like staring at through your soul. His chin is a little bit too big for a cat. I mean, I think it looked good, but I don't know. What I found doing like these portraits is, you know, there's a balance between realism and not realism. Like, you don't need to be super realistic. You know, it honestly would be better if you kind of skipped parts of the realism and just kind of simplified some things. He has some hair. I try to stay consistent with his hair. At least he usually has this like curve here. And I don't know, ever since I was a kid, I always kind of drew hair just kind of like sticking up like this. Maybe because that's what hair does in anime. Hair does not do that in real life, I guess, unless you're me. Or it just kind of like floats up. And he always has a cigarette because he's complicated. Just kidding. Well, not kidding, but kidding on the facetiousness. So he kind of has some interesting kind of shape language. You know, he has very kind of pentagonal shaped head and triangular ears. If I knew what the hell I was talking about, I could tell you what that means. But the expression I get, the feeling I get from this right now is somewhat more comforting than maybe, which is fine. I mean, he's kind of a misunderstood person, kind of alone. He, nothing wrong with him being comforting, because, I mean, he can be a comforting person. I've never done this, but I'm going to try drawing the collar, like, off here. I don't know, maybe that's, like, a style, or I guess. Futuristic style. Off-center collars. Yeah. Kind of have it curved back here. And his shoulders should come around here. I'm going to increase the size, so I don't really need to necessarily focus on the attire too much. Kind of make his eyes a little bit smaller. Okay, it's not bad. I'm getting somewhere. Now you have to do the flip test of, you know, misery, you know, flip it and then cry. But I can tell that there's only some adjustments I'm going to need to make. It's not going to be too bad. Mainly this, but I kind of wasn't sure if I wanted this to be symmetrical or not. And perfect symmetry is just not a good thing. You know, we're very, very proficient at reading faces, unless you're, you know, me. And it's not normal for a face to be perfectly symmetrical, so if you saw something that was, it would look off to you, but you probably wouldn't know why. Okay. Okay. Not terrible. Next is the more finalized line work. Since this is a painting, we don't have to take this too seriously. I do like to zoom in, mainly on the nose. Noses, to me, for whatever reason, my visual memory can never remember what a nose looks like. Like, I always have to go back and reference a nose. Like, I'm sure this is wrong. Well, it's not that wrong, but it's like, could probably be better. Probably look at a picture a second just to make sure I'm not super off. Which I should have done this in symmetry because, you know, it's a nose that's usually symmetrical. Cats have very triangular shaped noses, whereas dogs have like very round shaped noses. And I don't know what this is called, but on cats this definitely drops down more, and they have more of an angle on where their lips kind of break apart and separate. Their muzzle is definitely shorter as well. You know, I mean, there's a joke like people who draw dog characters can't draw their cats look like dogs, and it's the same. People who draw cat characters. But I mean, I think ultimately the most proficient skill that you can gain as an artist is your visual memory. Learning how to observe the world and memorize and know what the world actually looks like, because, you know, unless you're an artist, you don't really see the world. You just kind of look at it, but you don't know what it looks like. Like, if I asked you to like draw your pet, or, you know, you've seen your pet a million times probably, but you probably can't draw it. And if you tried, you would probably miss a bunch of details that you maybe never even noticed. So, you know, kind of a good thing to build your visual memory. This usually kind of comes in closer. This right here isn't realistic at all, but I guess I've kind of adapted that as part of my own style. And I am kind of scribbling a lot. If this were like a drawing, then I wouldn't do that. You know, but because this is a painting, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does matter actually when you get to like really precise details, like on hands and eyes and stuff, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm trying to stay angular. One thing I've learned about drawing is that angles are usually more attractive than curves. You know, curves look good, but if you're going to be using curves in your character design, you kind of have to be better, I guess. You know, it's kind of hard to describe, but curves require like more rhythm, I guess, you know. I can't even draw a curve.
Whereas an angle is, there's still rhythm in an angle, but it has, I don't know, there isn't really language to describe what I'm talking about. It's all just a matter of feeling, you know, kind of feeling what I'm talking about. Like a curve feels, when you look at a curve, it invokes different feelings than like an angle. And in my opinion, you know, you have to always kind of think like, well, what, you know, what does this feel like? You wanna kind of look at your work from the perspective of the person who might view it. You know, what is this person going to feel when they kind of see this? And most people don't know what they're looking at, but they'll get a feeling anyways. They just don't know what the feeling is being generated by. Which, in a lot of character work, it's usually shape language. The shapes here being, you know, everything. There are some curves, like the tips of the ears, the ends of the mouth. And that's a good thing, you know, you don't want everything to be angles, and you don't want everything to be curves. It's kind of a balance of contrast, and yeah. You just kind of have to, feel, you know. There's like an internal feeling that goes with basically everything. And I realized I'm kind of missing some detail on his clothing. I also just realized I'm kind of hungry, so that's not cool. Okay. The thing about drawing hair is that you're not supposed to draw hair. You know, if your question is how do I draw hair, then you're already wrong. You don't draw hair. Yeah, you never draw hair. Drawing hair is what people who don't know how to draw hair do. So by that I mean, you know, you kind of just when you're drawing, or quote unquote drawing hair, you just kind of, you're implying where the hair is and what the hair is doing. You're not gonna draw the hair. You're just kind of implying what it's doing. This side here is always a little bit more fluffy. Like the hair here is always softer and thinner. There's usually long strands coming in here. And then this area usually is darker. Most cats kind of have like, don't have hair on the inside of their ears, I don't think. Some do, but so it's usually skin. But I'm just gonna draw fluffy, hairy ears. And the eyebrows are kind of like instruments of expression, which, you know, they're so delicate. I feel like I changed his expression just by, it's the same angle, but because, I don't know, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to be drawing over it anyways. At this point, I should probably look at a picture of a cat just to make sure that I'm not completely off. Like this concave ears, they don't do that. So his collar is like weird. Okay. Trying to just figure out what I want to do with this. I'm just gonna go back to like my original sketch, kind of figure this out. Okay. Though remember that the center line's here, not over here. Don't really know, gonna be honest. Can't figure it out. And you know, it really doesn't matter because there really doesn't need to be very much detail there anyways, because I'm gonna be painting a portrait. And the portrait is kind of all about the face, not clothing. I'm sure I'll figure something out. Just kind of let's flip it again. I kind of like it the other way. Just put these in a group. And, so we can start by just applying a wash, which, you know, it's a technique you use in oil painting, but because I'm doing it in digital painting, it does nothing, and I'm just kind of being a bougie bastard. Just kidding. It does something because if you you want you want your paint strokes to kind of show through. You know, you don't want to paint with like an iron grip. You really want your you want to see the layers, and that's really what makes a painting are the layers. So, you know, painting is never good within the first, like, well, I mean, it can be good, but painting is never good during like the first few hours of the painting process, and it's because you don't have those layers that the painting really requires, or at least a really good painting in my eyes has like layers to it. So what I like to do now, well, the right thing to do is probably to paint some kind of atmosphere, just so we can get an idea of what the lighting will look like, because that will definitely determine the colors. But I'm not going to do that because for my portraits I usually just I kind of just use a landscape I painted in the past, just kind of throw it in there, because I mean all of my landscapes are kind of bad, so might as well get some use out of them somehow. Which I don't feel like, I feel like I painted a lot of landscapes, but when I've looked at my like folder, there's like not really that much in here, so I don't really know. There's like a photo bash that I've done. This is like one of the few photo bashes that I've done, and you might be thinking like, well, you just applied a wash. It's just kind of covering the wash, isn't it? And you would be right. It is definitely covering the wash. Actually, this probably sucks. But, you know, there's like a helpful tool. You just kind of Control J it. And then, filter, blur. Sorry. Yeah, blur, Gaussian. You know, and then you have yourself a masterpiece, I guess. Probably not gonna go with this because it's kind of lazy and not good. But I kind of like this actually. It's already kind of deviating from what I originally had planned. But I don't think I have any. Oh, I just have to actually paint the background, which kind of sucks. I'm just looking through my. Maybe I should move it over here. See what I'm looking at. These are all of my kind of like landscape attempts. This one's old. It's just awful. These are old. I never really take these very far. This is a study. This is a study. This isn't a study. Like, I don't. So painting a landscape with traditional brushes is like so much easier because you have the brush kind of does have to work for you, but on digital painting you kind of have to really be good at your brush work. Like it's a whole, like the brush work is kind of by default in traditional painting, but when it comes to digital painting you really kind of have to study your technique. Yeah, most of these I wouldn't even consider finished. This one's okay, this one's okay. This one's actually good. This was actually this was kind of a study. I did this in like an hour and this was actually pretty decent. This one's okay. This one I never finished. This one's okay. This one's me. This is probably the best one I've done because I actually finished it. This, I don't know what the heck that is. This was kind of a study. Again, just like a child could have drawn this. This one's, I don't know. This one's kind of a study, kind of a study. Just whatever. I think this might be the last one I did. And then I was like, alright, I'm just not a landscape artist. This was a photo bash. Actually, this was the last one I did. Yeah, I mean, whatever. And photo bash. Again, nonsense. Actually, okay, this one's the last one I did for real. And I didn't really finish it because I became upset and then I just put it away. I don't even remember this one. This one's meh. This one I kind of like this one. This is a scene from my world. This is the Dragon Spire. And if I remember the name of the location, I would tell you where. It's been a long time since I've like visited this part of my world because I've been spending the last 6 years on Princess Juliana. This one's okay too. I might use this one actually for the photo bath, for the painting. Just because I like the clouds. Again, just kind of weird. Just not finished. This one's okay. The problem with this one is that the details are way too sharp. You have sharp details in the back and the midground. Everything's too sharp. It doesn't have balance. This, who even knows what that is? This one's okay. I was really proud of this one. I was like, this is the best one yet. And it kind of was, but I mean, let's be real here. Everything's too sharp. Composition's weird. This is weird. I still don't really know exactly what's wrong with this. I think it's the lack of bounce light that makes this weird. You know, this is like this ambient occlusion under his horse and under here. There's no bounce light. Photo bash, photo bash, photo bash. Okay, pointless. This one was kind of neat, but like again, it just sucks. There's actually more of these than I thought. I thought it would be done by now. So, okay. This one was for a client. I don't know why he commissioned me to do this. I don't think I actually drew these. I think I actually just ripped these from like the public domain. Yeah. Alright, well that was the actual end. Where's the one that I wanted to use? Oh wait. Okay, for some reason I skipped over this one, but this would actually kind of fit the vibe better. Because, you know, sci-fi and all that business. Alrighty. We'll just, but on the other hand, it's just such a natural colors. It's just weird. Kind of, whatever. Let's just go with it for now. It's kind of wasting time on stuff that doesn't matter. Okay. So now we're gonna hide that and not pay attention to it because actually we are. I like to start under the sketch first. Why did all my brushes like fold up? Yeah, I like to start with a softer brush when I start painting. Sometimes I just straight up use the airbrush, and why don't we just do that, you know? Well, the problem with using the airbrush to fill in local colors is that you kind of get left with like airbrushiness like outside the line work, and that can be kind of annoying. But I do like the airbrush. You know, if you know how to use it correctly, then it can work for you really well. Otherwise, it'll probably look really ugly. And you know, I'm not really worried about filling in all of his tones. Let's actually give him a darker. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. This background I gave him is gonna be really hard to work with. I'm probably just gonna ignore it for the most part. Give him a darker green here. Yeah. I guess this is not really a jacket at this point. It's kind of more like a cape or cloak. Well, I don't know. I guess it's kind of a jacket. Okay. Darker hair. That's usually how it goes. Notice I'm very zoomed out. That's because I like to lean into my computer instead of just zoom in. Actually, it's because so you can kind of get a better view of the whole painting as a whole. You know, you do for a while. I thought you're never supposed to zoom in, but you definitely want to zoom in when you get to like finer detailing and rendering. But you want to save that until you kind of have a grasp over what it is you're painting. So here I kind of have some local colors, and what I can do now is just kind of add some light value. Notice when I kind of increase the values, I also shift the color wheel, because for some reason that's more realistic. Not sure why. Just is.
Okay. Also helps to know the anatomy. Even though he's going to be kind of covered in fur, it doesn't really matter as much. But you should kind of keep the anatomy in mind anyways. And, yeah. Just kind of scribbling in the details. It's not really important. You know, if your mindset is to make it perfect, then your mindset is to make it flawed. That's just kind of a hard true. Kind of like so right here would actually, well, it actually wouldn't be more orange in this like lighting. It would probably be a little greenish, but I'm not gonna do that because that's just gonna make everything look weird. Actually, this looks okay. Just kind of block in some color a little bit. You kind of want to take the colors of the atmosphere and, you know, all of the because the colors in the scene make up the colors of the scene, I guess. You know, nothing's ever just gonna be the color. You know, colors bounce. You know, if you really take the time to kind of study something, you'll probably find every color imaginable. You know, especially on something black. You know, it's not black. I mean, it is, but, you know, like on this, you know, like a non-artist would look at this and say, oh, it's black. Okay, well, here's some blues, you know, a little bit of green. This shadow would definitely be a little bit browner. It's kind of hard to tell to look at it too closely because I'm kind of looking at a small view of my webcam. So you kind of want to really look at the colors of something. It's probably too early to color in his eyes, but I'll do it anyways. Just kind of add a little bit here, you know. So at this point I can probably move to a different brush, but I'm not going to. So I can add some like interesting bounce light. I think I'll probably just do that anyways, even though it currently doesn't make any sense with anything that's currently in the composition. But it really doesn't matter because we can always just assume that whatever is creating this light is off camera. So we have some like interesting kind of bounce light coming off the ground. It wouldn't be as strong up here, but I don't care. In fact, we can just kind of, it's too early to do this, but it really doesn't matter. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to keep this background as blue. At this point, it would definitely make more sense to make it orange so it kind of matches the bounce lighting. So I'm not going to completely remove this, but I'm just going to, there, that looks better. Yeah, so far looking like portrait number 532. Just, you know, that's how it is. So now we're gonna paint over the line work I'm gonna keep using the airbrush because I'm a rebel. And we're gonna start adding some blues because even though we established that the scene is mostly not blue, we're gonna add blue. Just kind of, you know, some blues and like some more of like the darker corners of the painting. It's almost enough. Kind of want some right here too. Maybe a little bit right there. And yeah, give him a nose. I don't know why I made a new layer. It just wasn't necessary. I don't like pink noses. They always seem so off. Like even this feels off. Like it demands too much attention. So I'm probably just gonna use this color and just kind of barely make it darker. That looks a lot better. Okay. Sorry. Fun. Okay. So now what we can do is just kind of trying to decide what kind of brush I want to use. I mean, we can just be weird and use like a weird brush like this and ruin it if we want. I mean, there's no problem with that, you know, just kind of ruining the painting. You know, brushes really aren't important. I've never used this brush for a portrait like this, but it really doesn't matter. You know, I know earlier I said brushwork was important, but at the end of the day, painting and drawing is a form of communication, and you know, the brushwork is more like the font. You know, you can, as long as you understand what you're reading, that's what matters. I'm like missing some purples that could go like up here. It also doesn't matter because I'm gonna paint over all this anyways, and the only thing that will remain is like some artifacts, which is kind of what you want. This should be quite a bit darker, and I need to be careful with this brush because it's gonna very quickly kind of overwhelm what I'm doing. I usually use this brush. I kind of didn't want to use it though. Just kind of spread the colors around, I guess. There's this ridge here, which I can't remember what it's called. Kind of important to remember the name, the anatomy, but it's actually super important to memorize the name of the names of the anatomy, because you'll actually, if you know the name, then you know it's there. Right now I need some more yellows. Like this is just not saturated enough up here. To remember, the ridge protrudes. Typically the highlights will be found on like the bumps of the skeletal structure, you know, and the shadows will be found in the valleys. So far this is okay. One thing to note about drawing felines is they have this like kind of triangle at the end of their eye, and it kind of points directly to the opening of their nose, which I'll try and color in right now. Probably too early to draw his eyes. But again, it doesn't really matter. What actually matters, I don't know. I think people who don't know how to draw, they get way too obsessed with being bad at drawing. You know, it doesn't really matter. The things that matter when it comes to accuracy, if you're trying to be realistic, is anatomy and that's basically it. Anatomy, perspective, and when I say anatomy, I don't just mean human anatomy. I also mean stuff like architecture. You know, if you're drawing like an engine of a car, obviously it pays for that to be accurate. You know, when it comes to like mechanical stuff, it's important to be accurate. Kind of missing some balance, trying to find it, you know, probably around here. This right here is kind of a little bit too much, doesn't need to be that bright. Some unbalance here. This blue is nice. And yeah, I haven't painted in like a long time, but that doesn't really matter. But it does matter actually, because I intentionally picked an easy subject so I'm not freaking out. Yeah, his hair should probably use some highlights at this point, just so it doesn't look weird. Kind of pays to use a big brush for his hair, you know, because hair, unless you're me, kind of works in big blocks. Kind of give him some more strands over here. Gonna give them a little bit of a ridge light here, because you know there's something with light over there, the space around him. Kind of give him a little bit of stuff on his eye. Give him some blues. And at this point I can probably darken the eye a little bit. Don't want to make the whole thing that dark though. You kind of want to bring your values up together. You know, you don't
Unless I guess you're very good, you don't usually want to go too dark too fast. You know, I just want to let them all build together. Kind of adding some ambient occlusion to the ears now, which, if you don't know what that means, it's basically it's basically an area where the light doesn't escape. It doesn't mean there isn't light going in there. It just means that light isn't escaping, so it appears to be very dark. Which, you know, if you kind of put your fingers together, you know, you kind of see like crevices, dark crevices. That's the ambient occlusion. And it's kind of important. It helps things kind of pop a little. I remember I had an art teacher once tell me that there's no lines in reality, and for a while I believed that, and it made my drawing worse. But, you know, there's lines everywhere. I mean, I think she meant like the literal, like mathematical definition of a line is, you know, something with only length and no width. But, I mean, let's be real here. You know, if you look like at the seam of a door, it's very dark. It's a line. You know, you can't ignore that. Probably gonna use the same brown here for down here. He needs a little bit of darker colors down here. Again, I don't know what's going on with his like jacket thing, but it really doesn't matter because everyone's gonna see it and see something different, and their eye is going to make sense of it one way or another. You know, the only people who are going to be really critical of anything are other artists, because they're the ones who know how to actually see the world and break it apart with their vision. So far this is pretty decent, I would consider it. Definitely needs a lot more work. Right now his values could use some more work. It's one thing I'm still not super great at, our values. Nice thing about green is that it's a very reflective color. Green kind of, like if you want to make something look metallic, just paint it green. And then like add the bounce light and stuff over it. Green is a very, very reflective color. Actually, mirrors are green, so there you go. Boy, needs a little bit here. His eyelids. I've been starting to use the mixer brush tool a little bit. You know, I'm not great with the mixer brush tool, but it's a pretty cool tool. I only really just started kind of using it. So we'll just kind of play with it and see what happens, you know. You can get some really cool kind of looking effects with it. But yeah, right now I'm just kind of smudging. I don't want to smudge too much because then I'll just destroy all of this, you know, brushwork I put down, you know. It'd be like taking a graphite drawing and like smearing your hand over it. It would kind of ruin it. You don't really want to do that. That's where a lot of beginner artists kind of come into problems too. They think blending is like the road to a good piece of work, but it really isn't. you want to balance your edges. You know, not everything should be blended. Some things should be jagged. Some things should be rough. You know, like right there, I think would have been too much. So at this point of the drawing, or painting, I think would just be kind of left up to mostly just rendering. Which for some people is like the easy part, but for me it's the part that's annoying. Why, one might ask? I don't know. I would say I only just recently started to be able to render properly. Like most of my rendering's always been just kind of, it never really looked rendered, but I've kind of gotten there. So I'm kind of liking some of these soft edges on the receded part of his collar, because when I go back and add some sharp hair strands, it'll look really nice. Also right here, if I used like a sharp edge right here against that nice soft fur, it will definitely just look really good. And that's kind of what I mean by, you know, balancing your brushwork. You know, you need a balance of hard, soft edges. I'm just gonna keep playing with the mincer brush tool here. Just kind of blend this a little bit. Just kind of gives it more of like a sheen. But it's a little bit too soft right now. It's kind of lacking texture. Which is perfectly fine. You know? I think if I did this right here, it would be too much. There needs to be some sharper edges on the chin. Right now we have like just kind of give it a little bit of something there. Okay. Well, so far so good. Obviously quite a bit more work to do. But I'm gonna take a break on this for now. So I'll be back later. Okay, I am back on another day. Yeah, I changed my camera because I don't know if I liked it where it was. One thing I kind of forgot to do, or what I would like to do, is add some core shadows. What the heck? Okay, don't know what that happened. I'm gonna add some core shadows. I don't have like a very serious lighting right now. There's no I guess the lighting right now is kind of mostly diffused lighting. There's no I don't have any cast shadows drawn in or anything like that. So any core shadows will be pretty soft. But I kind of do like adding some core shadows. At least I think that's what they're called. I'm not sure. There's like, I don't know, 100 different types of shadow. We'll just go with core shadow. And
I probably have this wrong. I should probably look it up really quick to make sure I'm not confusing it with a different shadow. Okay, no, I was right. A coarse shadow is basically where the light hits something. I'm just gonna bring up a diagram. Okay, not that. So basically you have the coarse shadow right here. If you notice, it's not the darkest part of the shadow. That would be the ambient occlusion, or the occlusion as this diagram shows. And the reason why it's darker is because light is actually bouncing off this surface here and giving some light to the bottom. So even though it's not the furthest from the light source, it's the darkest because it's where the least light is hitting it. But the coarse shadow is usually also the atmosphere, takes the color of the atmosphere. So assuming that this is just ambient light, or I'm sorry, diffused lighting, he wouldn't really have much of a coarse shadow, but I'm going to add it anyways because it kind of helps things kind of pop a little bit more. It kind of gives them a little bit more shape. I don't know how I would describe that. I do like to use this tool here. I like to use this like bristly brush when I'm painting fur. It kind of does give it like a softened look. The only issue, you want to be careful, since I'm painting on all layers right now, it can smear the background, which can be annoying. I don't want to be too violent with it and, you know, destroy all of his brushwork, but it doesn't. It's okay. So I'm just gonna add some darker tufts right now. And then I can put a little bit of highlights on the end of it, and that kind of makes it look a little bit more like fur. I still do need to paint in his cigarette, but that's not an important detail. So it's not something we're gonna worry about too much right now. And the nice thing about the mixer brush is that you can kind of stamp with it. But I still don't fully understand how the mixer brush controls like all these different wetness, mix and loading and load settings. I don't really fully understand.
go. I do need to add some texture to his clothing, which I'm not really sure what I'm going to do about that. I can find like a brush with some texture on it and layer it over, which could do something. At this point, I should look at some like artistic reference for his clothing, but that would definitely help a lot. This is kind of interesting. Honestly, with this painting, I'm just kind of screwing around. I have no idea if I'm even going to use whatever I just did. But, I mean, it looks kind of interesting. Okay, that's not what I wanted to do at all. I have no idea what I'm doing. But it doesn't really matter. When has it ever mattered? Again, I literally have no clue what I'm doing. Not a single idea. Need some darker. What I should really focus on now are his values, because they're not good. See, it's basically, his whole face is basically one shade of gray. And that's not optimal. I mean, that just makes it just looks flat. So what I usually, I mean, if you like paint in black and white first, then you can kind of fix that by just kind of starting with the values first and painting over them. That's typically the best way to get good values. But something about painting in black and white just kind of makes me hate painting. Okay, this brush is not what I want. So what I like to usually do to kind of fix that is I kind of like to go to levels and just kind of I like to kind of add a layer where all the values are darker, and then I will usually just kind of go in and erase on a mask, of course, so I'm not ruining it. Just kind of going to erase where what some of the lighter tones will be, and that usually works out okay. Of course, probably should make this less saturated though. Values are not one of my strong suits. It's definitely one of the areas I have room for improvement. You know, values are kind of very much or at least one of the most important aspects to a painting. So it really helps to have really, really good values. Values are definitely more important than color, which is why so many people typically start with doing their values and not their color. But I'm more of a painter of color, not painter of value. So this already kind of looks less flat, which is kind of what we're after. Probably going to erase on the background a little bit, because I don't want everything. You have to be really careful with these, like, with these tools. You know, right here, it's like super dark. You don't want things when you're like adjusting levels or curves or adding or using blending modes. You want to be really careful not to make your darks black or your whites white, because that'll definitely cause problems. But this definitely looks a little better. Since we just have mostly kind of diffused lighting right now, I'm going to try and add some sense of shadow. And I sometimes I'll just go in and use you know, a multiply layer, which is pretty typical. This is how most people add their shadows. They'll just go in and multiply it in. Sometimes I'll also just this isn't very sharp. Sometimes instead of doing this, I'll just do another levels. And again, just kind of darken it. Okay, this shouldn't be like this. Okay, I'm just kind of messing this up right now. And then just do the same thing. Well, actually, I invert it and then paint it in this way. Kind of gets the same thing done, you know? Not much different. This is just a little bit too strong and really isn't enough color here. It's okay. It's kind of good to have a nice sense of shadow. It really does help. Right now his shadow is kind of weird. It seems like the lighting's kind of coming in this way. So this would have a little bit of a cast shadow. I'm also not good with cast shadows. That's another place for improvement. I kind of just guess. I don't really have a very formulaic way of doing cast shadows. So typically should be a little bit better right there. Maybe a little bit of a shadow under his eye. Definitely a bit of a shadow where his brow kind of comes in. So right now my darks are a little bit too dark. In fact, I might say that shadows might just be a little bit too dark in general. So I'm just applying it just a bit. It's probably fine. So values still aren't like great by any means, but they're getting better. Like if we went before and after, this is much better. But like I said, I'm not great at values. for this to be really great at values, or kind of good, like I should really see kind of like the whole spectrum of grays just kind of on his face, just really kind of adding some serious depth. Like I should probably make this area here darker, which it will be. There's just like a bit of problem with this background. Big surprise. Right now I'm just kind of seeing if I can find some magic in the blending modes, see if I just kind of find something that kind of looks cool. Hard mix is always a strange one. I'm gonna add hard mix, it should probably be over here. Which, this is definitely interesting, but I'm not sure if this is really gonna help painting very much. Typically should not be working with blending modes like this at this point in a painting, but because this painting is kind of turned into the do whatever I feel like, even if it's not a good idea painting, I'll do it anyways. I need to brighten this up a little bit because it's not going to be workable if it keeps getting too dark. This really is kind of a strange painting at this point. But I think now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start zooming in. I usually like to start with the outer edges, and kind of painting over this like rim light I added a little bit, which is fine. Remember, I don't want to completely paint over my layers. I kind of want to leave some windows that show what's beneath. And since I'm zooming in, I usually like to open up the navigator, which is like a zoomed out window of the whole piece, so I can kind of keep an eye on the whole painting while I'm zoomed in. And that's really useful. This right here is a little bit weird. Give cigarettes some color, I guess. I don't want to worry about that too much right now. It's just such an unimportant detail. Same thing with the chin. There's a lot of these kind of dark openings. You know, painting fur can be a little bit like painting grass. If you really want grass to pop, you want to make sure there's a lot of like inner shadows. This is probably a little bit excessive. Definitely be darker at this point. There should be more of a highlight right here too. This needs to be dark. Darken this up. That's fine. It's good to know what direction fur kind of travels on too. It kind of goes from the nose up and then it goes like around their face like that. So it's gonna go like this way. This is the part of the painting process that will take hours. Just meticulously putting in work where work is needed. Now that we have like all of the colors and kind of the main components kind of put in, now we kind of just work with what we got until it's done basically. Some kind of underlight here, a little bit of atmospheric lighting here. Again, a little bit of underlight lighting. A little bit of some core shadow. And then this isn't supposed to be black, so we'll paint it over this line work. Okay, for some reason my mixer brush tool changed. This is actually too dark. This is way too dark. I don't know why I use this color here. It's kind of the danger of adjusting values. Like I said, you can easily make something way too dark and then you might have a problem. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to tip in more, like it's supposed to be more triangular. I might adjust that in the when I go and liquefy tool and try and fix parts of the structure that aren't great. So right here, the lines are kind of not brushwork isn't really moving in the same direction. Kind of like there. It's just kind of missing some. You know, the darker, you know, the shadows are kind of where most of the light comes in. So if we really kind of wanted to bring this a little bit better, this would kind of be less saturated, and this, yeah, this whole like side would be less saturated. And I might adjust that, I'm not sure yet. I don't like how this is so angular. Let's kind of round it off a bit. This is definitely going to need to be fixed. But because we're working on Photoshop, it doesn't really, you know, it's a lot easier to fix errors. You know, you can be a little bit bad at drawing and fix it. I usually don't really spot the errors in my drawing until I start painting. So, you know, it's just part of the process. This is values on the nose, still need work. So a general rule is you don't want to zoom in more than 200%. 200% is kind of like the max zoom in. Because if you go in this close, well, now you're kind of worrying about details that people aren't even going to be able to see. So you really don't want to get too zoomed in, because it'll just make things look weird. Okay, Photoshop crashed, so let's hope my file didn't get obliterated. Okay, well, it didn't die, so that's great. Definitely wouldn't have been our first time. I think we're gonna work on Photoshop. Actually, what I usually do, which I haven't done on this painting, is I'll usually export the image as like a backup save, so that if it does crash and I can't recover the file, then I'm not completely screwed. Just some funk in here that shouldn't be there. There's just an issue with this background. It's kind of making the painting worse. I'm not... quite sure what the issue is. I might just completely redo the background. It's really not helping. I think he might look better on like a brighter background versus a darker one. I'm not sure yet. We'll definitely figure it out at some point. Maybe, but the background I have right now is absolutely just kind of killing the whole thing. It's not good. Probably gonna try and throw in that background I initially had in mind. Actually, this one's interesting. Doesn't really solve the issue. Kind of does. And as much as I should be painting the background, it's just kind of meh. This just kind of emphasizes how flat his chest is. Just another thing that needs to get worked into. I can't find the one I wanted. Where is it? Dude, really? I have the worst refrigerator blindness. I can't find anything. Where is it? Okay, this is actually gonna trigger me. Oh, here it is. Thank God. Almost lost my mind. This is definitely a nice landscape painting that he did. Except his colors just don't really work with it. So, I'm gonna try something. My webcam is covering my thing, so I can't see. Ugh, that's annoying. Come on. What I could also do is just leave it as is and just see what happens when I do this. Right now I'm just kind of messing around. Okay, this literally just... Well, I kind of got something. I don't think that's really what I want to go with, though. I've kind of done enough portraits with, like, your typical background. Just not fun. So... I don't know. I think he would look better against a little bit of a lighter background, but I'm not too worried about it right now. So at this point, I can start kind of erasing some of this line work. I don't like to completely erase the line work, but you know, just like the rest of the painting, you kind of want it showing through at least a little bit, you know. But sometimes the line work really does kind of get in the way, so it's best to erase it. So this right here is, I mentioned this, usually softer. So to kind of depict that, I can kind of just use my smudge tool, this smudge brush. So with eyes, you really want to emphasize the fact that they're spheres, you know? That really does help. It'll definitely bring a lot more life to whatever it is you're painting when, you know, their eyes are actually spherical and not just like anime eyes where they're just kind of like flat. Definitely don't want to put too much detail in on the eyes too early, because the eyes should be like the shining piece, and there's like, I mean, there's really an endless amount of stuff you can do with their eyes. It kind of helps to make them a little bit soft. One thing I've kind of come to like to do with these characters is I kind of like, I mean, it's just purely stylistic, is I like to make the outer end of their eyes kind of glowing. I think it looks kind of cool. Anatomically non-existent, but because this is a painting, I can do whatever I want. I mean, there's really so much more to do to their eyes, but for now, that's all that's really appropriate. Oops. So, I do think he has too much of an outline around his eyes, though. It kind of makes the rest of it not look right. Not really sure. I'm just kind of fixing. Well, I don't know if I like that. I think I might have just kind of scuffed it a little bit. So one thing to note about the eyes that I kind of didn't do here was where the eye is, the iris or the cornea. My eye anatomy is a little rough. It should be should bulge up, like where the eyelid is, because it's bulging over the lens of the eye. But because I'm kind of leaning more on the cartoony side a little bit, or else I'm choosing to lean more on the cartoony side here, I'm kind of ignoring that detail just to kind of emphasize this kind of attitude he's portraying, where he just kind of doesn't care. Or maybe I'll fix it. I don't know. At this point, his eyes kind of look a little far apart. They're a little bit weird. I'm sure if I do the flip test of misery, everything will just look perfectly fine. Usually, as I start painting, it gets worse. I can't remember where the things are because my webcam is covering my thing, dude. Okay, moment of truth. Yeah. He kind of looks like he got windswept and his whole body just kind of went, I don't know.
But it's perfectly fine because I'm going to fix it later. And having flipped it, I can just really emphasizes just how kind of not good the values are and how not good this background is. This background is like actually just completely obliterating this whole painting. It really is just kind of ruining it. It's not too bad, but it does require fixing. Okay. I think the colors are cool at least. I'm gonna try and give them a little bit more kind of shape down here. It's just very flat. Flat, not fun. Again, I just kind of have like this weird foliage brush just kind of pasted over his jacket thing. Still not sure what that's about, but the sharpness of that brush kind of really makes things kind of look cool, so there's that. I might just add back this like glow down here just because it looks cool. Kind of plays a bit on some of that sci-fi-ness. Almost like whatever he's standing under is really kind of glowing. Or standing over, sorry. Again, with this, like, this background sucks so bad. You shouldn't be afraid to scribble when you paint. Scribbles can really add a lot. I'm not a master of the scribble technique, but there are those who are, and their work is always really cool looking. So, you know, scribbles are fun. The scribbles will definitely help add some much needed texture to his clothing. Again, still don't know what the heck these like brush trees are, but I'll just paint over them with some scribbles. So I think at this point this is really starting to kind of look like it's entering its later stages of the painting process. Still needs a lot of work. A lot of things still need to get fixed. One thing I kind of forgot to put in here was some bounce light from his fur, because that would definitely strongly affect the color of, you know, the inside of this jacket. You know, it wouldn't just be green. I would definitely have some of the fur, and the same thing with his fur would take on some of that green, which I kind of put in, but I feel like I can exaggerate it a little bit more. I could go as far as to like really bump this up to like an orange even, if I really wanted to exaggerate it, but don't want to do that too strongly because then I'll lose the values, which, you know, the values are already not great as they are, so I don't want to make them worse. You know, if you're not feeling ballsy, a great way to kind of add some
bounce light is to I feel like I need to change the color of his shirt actually. I'll just that, or I'll just change the color of his jacket to blue, which is like the alternate color. Okay, that's not what I wanted. If you just kind of take your airbrush and go soft light, it's a great way to add some bounce light. It's a safe way to add bounce light without, kind of risking damaging your painting. Like I said, I don't really want to add too much green. I think I already have like a good color palette established and I don't want to muck with it too much. But just a little bit will definitely provide a bit of something. Just a little bit here. A little bit here. Actually, it's like just a hinge too much. I'm gonna try and work on trying a different color here. Just go hue, I guess. Don't really know if I like this too much. Do you think the green kind of had a little bit more personality? Just kind of graze it out a little bit. I think it might be better on the shirt. Okay. Definitely don't want to do too much though. Usually his shirt is green and then the jacket's blue, but it's okay. Doesn't have to wear the same clothes all the time. Just kind of scribble in some blue here. Don't want to like completely make it blue. It's like way too much. Okay. Definitely making progress, but again, this background is just such a major weak point. Probably just going to erase this up here. I might just paint the background instead of being lazy. It's always a possibility. His values are still like kind of just meh. I mean, they're not terrible. The background definitely isn't helping with his values. If I put him on a pure black and white background, his values definitely look a little bit better. They can definitely be bumped. So far, so good, I guess. Yeah. Well, it's time for another break. Okay, so I had my mic muted on the last recording, so oops. Thankfully, it was only like 30 minutes of painting, so yeah. Basically, I just lightened some values and kind of worked on this background. This background just is not. The background really isn't helping the painting. It's really not too 100% sure on what I'm gonna do about it yet. It's just something. It just feels a little off. I kind of want to do something with his clothes, but it's not really the important part. I think at this point, the best thing to do would be to just kind of render out his eyes a little bit more. Once I go in and start polishing this, then the eyes will start to really pop. Right now I'm just kind of throwing in a little bit more detail, which may or may not be helping this, but I like this more saturated color. Oh, actually, is it more saturated? It is more saturated. I'm not worrying about making the eyes the correct saturation just yet. Just kind of soften this a little bit. And a little bit of a core shadow there. Should probably have one right here too. Oh, that's not really core shadow. So this is a tool that most people don't use. It's called the dodge tool. Basically, oh wait, can I not do this? Okay, well, apparently I'm not allowed to do this. Use this tool unless it's on all layers, so that's really strange. When it comes to the dodge tool, you really need to be careful because you can very easily burn painting. And I'm probably not going to use it anymore because it's have to be on, it doesn't give me the option to use it on all layers. So I'm probably just going to use your standard color dodge, but before I do that, I'm going to go darker color, probably. Okay. Pin light is also pretty nice. This is, I'm not trying to I'm not ready to polish this just yet. I'm not sure what pin light does actually. But get a pretty interesting kind of look on there. So now I'm just adding a little bit of specular highlights. Because we're starting to kind of near in on the end of the painting here. Need to cut in his pupils a bit more. Okay, cigarettes don't actually get this. Yeah. It's okay, I guess. I might actually just make them a little bigger, or fit into this canvas a little bit better. really make much of a difference. Normally I do this, but I feel like for whatever reason on this particular painting, it's not actually going to help improve it. In fact, it might honestly make it worse. I don't know. So I'm not going to go too crazy with it. This definitely isn't my best painting. In fact, I don't think it's even close. But I haven't painted in like a month. Actually more. Really haven't painted at all. So it's what it is, you know? I honestly just not happy with the background. I really should have kind of figured that out more instead of just being lazy with it. Yeah, I really kind of goofed it on that one. Okay. Definitely an interesting portrait, but um, yeah. Yeah. This would be a lot better if it made sense. It really isn't too much clarity with like the lighting. It's kind of weird. But, you know, that's the price you pay for not planning it out enough. I really didn't have a vision in my head for this painting, which is honestly why I've been struggling with painting, is because I don't really, when I have like the picture in my head, when it comes to me, it's so easy and like I paint something dope. But that's not usually ever the case. I just wonder if it would be better if I just did that. Holy crap, I just flashbanged myself. Oh my god. Hurt my eyes so bad. Boy. That's way too bright. Okay. Okay. Would really be nice if I could, sharpen this a bit. Or this is really gonna need to be up here. I'm not gonna get that as sharp as I want it to. Oh well. I definitely do want that to be sharpened. It's probably as good as that's gonna get without me freaking bringing out the paintbrush and actually painting a sharper edge. This stuff right here, just kind of funky. Oh well. There's a little bit of cleanup I could do to make this a little better, but I think it's probably fine. Whatever. I could have, nitpick at this thing for, all eternity. Originally I was going to do quite a bit more rendering and stuff, but I don't know. This really just seemed fine at where it was. So now I'm going to do the thing I should have done before I did anything I just did. Ugh. Just the flip test of misery. It actually doesn't look... It looks way weirder on this side, but nothing doesn't really scream that it needs to be adjusted or anything. Maybe his eyebrow a little bit. Ugh. Who cares? This thing's gonna get like 2 likes on social media max. So, doesn't really matter. And yep. For the final touch, bring out the old signature. And yeah, that's about Dunzos. Yeah, I'm sure there's more I can do to it, a lot more. I kind of have a mixed feeling on this. On one hand, I think it's cool. On another hand, it kind of does show my limitations. But that's okay. And yeah, I mean, if anyone actually watched this whole thing, then thanks, I guess. Hopefully you found it helpful, or at least useful in some way. And I should really fix this nostril. Holy I did not render this at all. Oh well. Doesn't really matter. Anyways, thanks for watching, and if anyone actually watched this whole thing, and if you would like more painting commentary, then, or live painting, real-time painting, then just let me know, I guess, and maybe I'll do another one. But yeah, thanks for watching, I guess. Bye. Subscribe, whatever, like the button. Peace.